Time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Wednesday night. We are loaded up, full of it tonight here on Sports Talk, as we are every night. Glad you're with us wherever you're dialed in, heading home from work perhaps, maybe already home and out for a walk, maybe getting in a quick 9 somewhere, turning some laps in the pool, sitting on the back porch, sipping a cold one, listening to Sports Talk. We thank you however you are getting to us. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, 800-956-7266. The number, email talkback at sportstalksc.com. On Twitter at SportsTalkSC. We had a very eventful day here from Sports Talk, along with other media from the Columbia area who went over to USC at their invitation to get an inside look at the new operations building, which is moving along. They hope to have it finished by December, January, and then it'll be full go from there. We met with Ray Tanner and Will Muschamp. You'll hear from them. A very impressive building. No other way to cut it, man. It's going to be beautiful, functional, and everything the Gamecocks need to bow out their chest and say, hey, we got one too. You got yours, we got ours. It's going to be a very, very big asset to Gamecock football. Already is an asset.
And the thing, too, people are going to ask, well, how does it compare to Clemson's? That's going to be the biggest question, I think, among people. And I think the real answer to that is that it doesn't. And it's not to say that one is better than the other. It's just I think this fits the personality of South Carolina. Clemson's fits the personality of Clemson. Clemson, I think, and Pro and I were talking about this earlier before the show, you know, you have a somewhat rural campus. You need to kind of maybe do some more glitzy, glammy things in order to attract people there. Whereas South Carolina, you're in a city, you're in the capital city, and you have a head coach who personifies a very tireless work ethic. And I think the biggest word that was used today was functional, essential, and I think basically the fact that so much of what they have today is basically going to be a very big change in now the way that they do things. They're going to have different meeting rooms, different locker rooms, different offices, and it's a showcase for recruits. It's a thing that they're going to use in order to get football players in here, and they've already used it, according to what Will Muschamp and Ray Tanner have said today. And you know, it's going to be fun to see that it all go up, and fun to see how they use it, and fun to see the fruits of their labor coming to fruition here after $50 million of well-sourced money.
Yeah, it's sort of like being the 60-year-old guy on his third wife, and it's the trophy wife, and you're showing off your trophy wife to the other guy's trophy wife. I mean,
I don't know if I get that analogy.
Well, you know, a lot of guys, after they've gone through a couple of wives, they're later on in age, kind of like Pro, and they get what's called the trophy wife. You know, she's beautiful, she's 30, and you show her off. You put her on the arm and you take her around, you show her off. South Carolina's got hers, Clemson's got hers, Alabama's got hers. The point is they've got beautiful buildings. They're different in a lot of ways, but they are alike in a lot of ways. And I think it's better to talk about how they are alike, because the bottom line, Pro, is these buildings are supposed to be part of developing the football program and developing the football player and making you a better team.
Well, I think probably the big thing we look at when we look at South Carolina football is the fact that it was always talked about that the stadium was off campus, and we know that. And so for some people, that's a negative. Some people, it's a positive. I know the television people like it because they don't get stuck on campus with all the equipment. They can just load up the truck and go out. But the key point is this showed great imagination by a lot of people of how, first of all, they would utilize the land that they were able to purchase when they moved to farmers market. Because they was like, what are they going to do with that land? Well, I think as far as what they've done is probably the best thing they could have done for South Carolina football in utilizing that land.
All right, that's the stuff around here is focused on South Carolina Clemson. We'll be talking a boatload about that. It's an SC Wild night, but there's a big story developing nationally. It started this morning with Brett McMurphy on his Facebook page related to Urban Meyer and Ohio State, and there's some breaking news on that.
Yes, basically, Corn, the biggest part of that story is the fact that there are allegations that Urban Meyer allegedly covered up or did not correctly notify authorities about the allegations of domestic violence and domestic abuse by one of his now former coaches, Zach Smith, one of his assistants. He basically had text messages, did Brett McMurphy, that were between Urban's wife and the alleged victim. Basically, the action that Ohio State has now taken here, this has just come out on the wire here. The university is now conducting an investigation into the allegations. Urban Meyer will be placed on paid administrative leave. They will have Ryan Day serve as the acting head football coach during the investigation. Urban Meyer also put out a statement saying, "Gene and I agree that being on leave during this inquiry will facilitate its completion. It allows the team to conduct training camp with minimal distraction. I eagerly look forward to the resolution of this matter." But Corn, you know, it's weird how this is all kind of basically taken a life of its own. You remember when he spoke at Big Ten Media Days one day after the firing of wide receivers coach Zach Smith, he said he knew nothing about the allegations. And of course, McMurphy's report that came up this morning certainly draws to, I guess, make that kind of contrary to that.
Oh, this is a big story. It's a terrible story. It's got Title IX implications involving the university. Not only did Urban Meyer know about the allegations made by the former coach's wife, his wife knew about it. Other wives of coaches knew about it because the alleged victim shared all this information with these coaches' wives as part of a support group. And you can see the text messages back and forth. What a great job of reporting by McMurphy. And, you know, just to stand up in Chicago, I think it was in Chicago.
Yes.
To stand up in Chicago in front of the national media and just flat out lie about it. In this day and age with college athletics, I don't see how he survives, especially when it comes to the abuse of a woman, a spouse, of a coach that you kept on your staff with full knowledge that this was going on. This is the end for Urban Meyer.
You know, the key point is if you can just think about just the rationale in it, no Ohio State coach has left under his own volition in football since 1943. When Paul Brown was coach.
Different circumstances.
For whatever reason, it happens.
Yeah.
No, we know it's different circumstances, but the same thing happens to
some
all.
of it's on field, some of it's but stuff behind the scenes. Jim Tressel had his allegations.
Here's the problem Ohio State has. Their offensive coordinator is Coach Wilson from Indiana, who was what? Blamed for being too rough on players. You got Greg Schiano, who they tried to just muddy up his aura at Tennessee because they didn't want him there, and said somehow they were going to implicate him with what happened at Penn State.
Well, Urban Meyer, I've never really, you know, he was a golden child of coaching coming up. A Lou Holtz prodigy, came up through the ranks and had all great success. Bowling Green, Utah, then went to Florida. But, you know, he left Florida, and he said he was retiring and he wanted to spend more time with his family. His health was a problem, was going to spend more time with his family. And what did he immediately do? Go to work for ESPN, which, you know, every weekend kept him away from his family, kept him on the road. And then from there, of course, he rode that to the job at Ohio State.
Kept him in the limelight, though, too.
Yeah, and I just think he was using that as a way to walk away from Florida and the problems that he created there. And apparently those were huge, as Will Muschamp would attest to if given the opportunity. I think he's done. I think this is the end of the road for Urban Meyer.
I think so, too. He's been placed again on administrative leave. Ryan Day is going to be the interim head coach. We'll take your phone calls, 800-956-7266 on this. I think we'll probably get a lot of mileage out of this, unfortunately, because it just seems like this is a story that has garnered a lot of attention. We're also going to hear later on in the show from both Will Muschamp and Ray Tanner from USC on their brand new football operations building. As Corn mentioned, it's an SC Wild night as well. So we'll hear from Captain Billy Donner in our second hour. 800-956-7266. Sports Talk continues with your phone calls next.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
So who do you believe
There's plenty online at SportsTalkSC.com on the brand new Kenneth and Cindy Long Family Football Operations Center. We've got videos online. We've got pictures as well, a little picture gallery from our media tour. We're going to hear from Will Muschamp and Ray Tanner later on in the program. You can also find those interviews online at SportsTalkSC.com. But the top story, at least across the college football world, is the placing by Ohio State of their head coach Urban Meyer on paid administrative leave for allegations that he helped cover up the domestic abuse of a now fired Ohio State assistant. Offensive coordinator Ryan Day is going to take the spot of Meyer as the interim head coach. We don't know how long the investigation that Ohio State will put on, how long will take place, whether it'll bleed into the season or not, but some trying times for Ohio State and its head coach. And Corn, we've got phone calls lined up, ready to go.
Ohio State used to having a interim head coach. It seems like almost every other year somebody has to step in. We go to James in Sumter, 800-956-7266, the number. Welcome in, James. How are you?
Hey, guys. I'm great. Hey, just let me have a few minutes to say what I say, get this off my chest.
Go ahead.
First of all, I'm not God. I'm not God. I'm not the final judge. But I've been telling people for years, Urban Meyer is a dirtbag. He's a dirtbag. Now, when this guy was down in Florida, Phil, you are a journalist. I don't know if you're an investigative journalist, but do your investigations. This dude had over like 40 arrests, strangulations, rapes, assaults. Y'all think that Jameis Winston stuff is something? That's big. Okay, that is big. But it was covered all up in Florida like I don't know what. They had over 40 players arrested, numerous rape allegations, numerous violence against women at Florida, okay? It was all covered up, and everybody is just singing and dancing. Oh, Tim Tebow is just like he is just like the picture of Christ. And I'm not saying that he's not, but they used that boy while they was doing all that kind of stuff. They had a serial killer on the team, and Aaron Hernandez shot a kid down there. That's covered up. Y'all probably don't even know about that, but he shot a kid in the head down there at the University of Florida. Urban Meyer is a dirtbag. This dude is a dirtbag. One thing I've noticed about him, when he was going head-to-head against Bowden down there, he would never address Bowden by his real name. He'd always crack and make jokes about Bowden. He would never give Bowden his due respect, and Bowden was on his last leg. Okay, but guess who he did endorse as one of the greatest of all time? Joe Paterno. Okay, and I'm not gonna knock that dude because that dude's dead. But let me say this before I hang up. I can't find the exact quote, but here's the quote. Okay, the quote goes like this: the Jameis Winston thing. Oh, you know, if I had been his head coach, I couldn't overlook the crab legs incident. I think that would have been the last straw with me. Quote unquote, Urban Meyer talking to Bill O'Reilly about Jameis Winston, saying that he would have thrown Jameis Winston off the team over some crab legs. Okay, so this dude is a dirtbag. This was covered up, and people don't make excuses because this lady was getting beat while she was pregnant, and she was covered up. Now you a damn scumbag. And you scumbags that are listening to the show out here that's doing this to these women, I hope they lock y'all up too. This stuff, beating these women, a pregnant woman, that kind of stuff, it needs to stop. And it needs to stop here in the state of South Carolina because I'm proud of the state of South Carolina, but there is no way in hell we should be in the top 10 or top 5 against violence versus women. And I get upset about this thing because I got a daughter that I love very much, and I got a mother that I love very much. And thank God they've never been through it, and I don't want them to go through it.
All right.
But guys, this dude is a scumbag. Hope he's gone.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Appreciate your phone call. Let's go to Wes in Florence. Next up here on Sports Talk. Hello, Wes.
Hey, I'll be a little less dramatic. I've got a couple of questions. One, if Urban Meyer is fired, will that leave just Saban and Dabo as the only two active coaches win a championship?
Top of my head, I'd say yeah. Top of the head, I'd say yeah.
Right. And second question, you know what happened at Ole Miss when all the other coaches from other schools camped outside the campus? Do you think that's probably going to happen up there? If he does, Jimbo Fisher, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is that going to happen out there where you think they'll camp out at the campus? if some of the recruits start reneging or some of the people want to transfer, you think that'll happen up there like it did at Ole Miss?
I think you're going to hear a lot of decommitments start to pop at Ohio State here in the next once they start to soak this stuff in and figure it all out. I think you'll hear of some recruits starting to back out.
Again, while we have a moment between calls to kind of talk about what James was saying, I don't think there's very many people who actually like, support, or have anything nice to say about Urban Meyer. I mean, it's one thing to have this happen to somebody who has a universally liked reputation. I don't think anybody's crying for Urban Meyer today.
No, I don't think
even
so.
if you're an Ohio State fan, you kind of know that he's a little.
Well, I think James everything James said could not be refuted. What he said about Urban Meyer at Florida was exactly the case. I can't cite the exact numbers, but dozens and dozens of arrests. He's exactly right about Aaron Hernandez. He did shoot a guy down there. He was a serial killer. The program, Will Muschamp was hired to come in, as they said, and clean up the mess.
Mm-hmm.
And they praised Will Muschamp at the end of the day, even when he was fired. If you go back and read the recent article by Mike Bianchi from Orlando, that the most unusual thing happened when Muschamp was fired is that the president and the AD at the press conference sang his praises the whole time about what a great job he did internally to fix the mess.
Well, Mike Bianchi is the guy I quote often when he says that Urban always, when things go wrong, bring out the deodorizer. That was his name for Tim Tebow, is what Mike Bianchi called him. But yeah, even Ohio State fans, I would think, cry more that their beloved home stater and Jim Tressel got fired. I don't think a lot of them were wary of Urban even when they hired him after the Florida episode, but they really cried a river when Jim Tressel had to step out the door.
All right, let's go to Rob in Myrtle Beach. Wants to talk about Urban Meyer as well. Welcome in, Rob. How are you?
Well, good evening, Grand Friend, gentlemen. My greetings and salutations on the greatest sports show in South Carolina.
I think we'll second that.
I bet you would. The two things are, number one, this guy's got to be 86. He's gone. He's gone. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, all the other stuff y'all are, talking about, you're right. I mean, it all happened. It all transpired. Bottom line is, you're done. You're done. Just walk away from college football. You put a blemish on it. You put a blemish on your school. You put a blemish on your state. You put a blemish on your players. And you know what? If you can't get your act together enough to understand that you knew what was going on and you condoned it and did all this stuff, you know what? There's a thing called hell and there's a thing called heaven. I guarantee you that soul is not going up to the upper ups. He's done. He's done.
And I think Ohio State, when the thing happened with college basketball last year and Louisville got mixed up in that, and they didn't wait around. They immediately fired Rick Pitino, and they got rid of the AD as well. They didn't wait for this thing to be investigated and drawn to a conclusion. I think Ohio State's going to be like, hey, man, we've had our full of this. This is enough controversy. We're cleaning the house here again. You're out of here. You're out of here. You're out of here. There could be a number of heads to roll in this thing because I'm sure not Urban Meyer alone was
privy
in
to
full knowledge of what was going on. Yeah.
No, yeah. It's a trickle-down effect. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that, other people knew about this thing, and they just covered it up. And, and I'm going to say this, guys, and I love you guys. I mean, I'm 63 years old, diehard Gamecock fan, and I want to talk to them Doty about Luke a little bit. But, it makes me sick that, these clowns that get away, they get away with it. They get away with it. They get away with it. Then they get caught. And, when Joe Powell went down, you know what? They took a statue down. They did all that stuff. People were raising heck about it. Are you nuts? Are you nuts? I mean, why would you not take a statue down? Why would you not do that?
Right. Appreciate the call. Thank you so much, Rob. We appreciate it. Have to move to a break, but I tell you, I think we're all in agreement. He doesn't survive this.
No, he can't.
I don't see how it's going to happen. Not in this day and age.
We'll continue to talk about that if you wish. 800-956-7266. We're also going to hear from Will Muschamp and Ray Tanner throughout the portion of the show about the Gamecocks' new football operations building. Sports Talk. Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We continue here on a Wednesday. A lot to get to. We have interviews with Will Muschamp and Ray Tanner about the new athletic operations building, which, again, we are going to talk a little bit more about, although we do have more calls from you, 800-956-7266, on Urban Meyer being placed on paid administrative leave for his involvement allegedly in a potential cover-up of the domestic abuse by Zach Smith on his wife, or now ex-wife. Lawrence tweets us at SportsTalkSC. Urban was always I'm not going to say that word on the air. He left Florida to escape the mess he made at Florida. Muschamp had to kick 21 scholarship players off the team in 2 years to cleanse the riff-raff, he says, that Meyer recruited. And again, like I said before, I don't think anybody thinks that Urban Meyer, one, is a saint, and number two, is a well-liked guy. So, I mean, like I said, I don't think there's people crying, for Urban Meyer today.
800-956-7266. Email us, talkback@sportstalksc.com. On Twitter, sign up, be a part of the Sports Talk ride every night and every day. On our Twitter feed at SportsTalkSC, we go to Delvin in Fountain Inn. Next up here on Sports Talk. Hello, sir.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? We're gonna find out if Urban Meyer is a good husband or not. Is he gonna throw his wife on the bus? Well, she ain't tell me nothing about this, so I didn't know nothing. We're gonna find out if he's a good husband or not too.
Well, I mean, the messages from the victim to his wife indicate that she discussed it with Urban Meyer.
Right.
It's in the messages. So
yeah,
unless that's bogus, then
unless she's lying,
stuck on that. Yeah.
Somebody on our Periscope said, "You know who's smiling right now? Jim Harbaugh."
Probably so.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if he's smiling. I don't think anybody's smiling over this story.
Based on the recent,
he might smile at the result of what happens to Urban Meyer. I don't think he's smiling about the story.
Based on the recent video I've seen of Jim Harbaugh going back to the bowl game, when I got a chance to see him in person, I'm not even sure he knows he's on planet Earth. That guy really looks to be out in left field to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if he took too many shots to the head or as a player or what.
You heard what he said about eating chicken, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's just kooky. They say, and I asked people at the bowl game who were from Michigan covering him, I'm saying, is he always like this? They go,
yes.
He's just different.
He's a different
word is just different.
And again, it's such a terrible story. It's so bad.
800-956-7266. Let's go to Britton in Charleston. Wants to talk Gamecocks Tigers for a moment. Then we'll get back to Urban. Hi, Britton. Thanks for holding.
How's it going, guys? Sorry to interrupt the rant about Urban.
That's all right.
Let's talk about something that's so close, football. I tweeted you guys last night. Appreciate you answering me about the position, the group that needed to step up the most. I got a question tonight that's kind of the same but a little different. And let's exclude, quarterbacks and maybe like Xavier Thomas and KJ Henry. But what recruit do you think will have the biggest year for both Clemson and Carolina this year? The biggest impact as a freshman, not down the road, as a freshman this year? I'll hang up. Listen to you guys off the air. Love your show.
Well, I think you have to look no further than Clemson's Trevor Lawrence.
Maybe.
I think if you want to give another answer outside of that.
He's a recruit.
Oh, recruit.
Well, he's a recruit. I mean, technically, he's a 2018.
I think what he means
he's talking about incoming
freshman.
Yeah.
I believe that's what he's saying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe Jackson. I like Jackson Carman.
I think Darion Kendrick of Clemson's a guy you got to watch because he is such an athlete. He is such a talent at receiver and returning kicks. He did a great job in the spring. I think they really like him. And I think they're going to find a way to get him involved in a lot of different ways in their offense. He could be a true freshman to watch at Clemson.
My Carolina answer, Israel Mukwamu. I think he's going to be an immediate impact guy, cornerback.
JJ Inabar.
Oh, JJ Inabar, yes.
Inabar.
Yeah.
JJ Inabar would be one who did well. But in terms of an absolute choice of a freshman or a newcomer at South Carolina, I would also look at J.C. Horn.
Yeah.
I think they feel very good about him, what he can do and help them at corner.
Van?
Anybody in the secondary at South Carolina?
No Josh Van?
Yeah, possibly. But I think
there's too many guys.
I was going to say their receiving core is good enough to where you're going to have to wait your turn. I'd say corner And safety at South Carolina, if you can play, you're going to have a chance to get early snaps this year.
Well, I think probably we may have had some indication of what they think early on, with what they hope they believe they can get out of the freshmen from the fact that you had Jackson moved to safety. Maybe they think those young corners are ready to do something. Who knows? As far as Clemson is concerned, I think the unsung hero, anybody who steps up on there as a freshman on the offensive line. I think if anything, Clemson needs some depth on that offensive line. I really do think that's going to be a key for them.
One thing to clarify on this Urban Meyer thing, while Zach Smith has been accused of this alleged domestic abuse, he has not been charged with anything. He has not been charged with a crime. And according to
which is hard to believe if you look at the pictures.
According to Cleveland.com, the most that they could charge Smith with is a $100 fine for criminal trespassing misdemeanor because of the fact that there's I think it has something to do with
something is messed up with the laws in Ohio there.
Yeah, it's something about that.
If you look at the pictures of the alleged victim,
yeah,
you think she did that to herself?
No, I mean, trust me. I think
that's ridiculous too.
It's very ridiculous. And again, that it's you're not breaking any news saying that the laws in this country regarding domestic abuse and things of that nature involving assault are antiquated, archaic, and messed up.
Danny in Columbia with us next here on Sports Talk. Good evening.
Hey, it's Danny and Phil.
Hey.
Hey. I think that guy's already been charged with a domestic battery on his wife prior. This is like the second or third time. So this isn't.
Oh, wait a minute. First of all, hang on a second. Good to hear from you again. Long time.
Yeah, man. It's hard to find you. It's hard to get a radio station to pick you up. I got to put you on the radio. I mean, on the internet every now and then.
Well, where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Lexington now.
100.7 FM covers Lexington like the Dew covers Dixie.
Yeah, but who has radios anymore?
Oh,
do
you own a car? Do you have a job? You own a car?
Don't steal that from the Atlanta Constitution.
But Dew covers Dixie?
Yeah.
That's an old phrase.
I got to get out of the car at some point. But anyway, so Urban, I could care less. But do they have any five-star defensive tackles that we're going head-to-head? You know, we've had a number of battles. I think Raekwon McMillan went here, a linebacker that came down to Clemson, Ohio State. We lost the big-time safety from Georgia. We lost. You know, it doesn't seem to be many head-to-head battles this year for any big-time players. But do you know of any?
Well, you know, you got him for Jackson Carman.
Yeah.
You got him on that.
No, I'm talking about this year.
Yeah, in the 2019 class. I'd have to check. I'd have to check through my database and see off the top of my head.
And again, just to clarify what Danny was saying, yes, he did have a previous arrest for domestic abuse, but both times in the 2009 case that happened in Florida and the one in Ohio, the wife dropped the charges both times.
Darnell Wright, offensive lineman from Huntington, West Virginia, is a guy that has both Clemson and Ohio State on his short list of 10. So that would be one I would look at that, you know, they could possibly end up going head-to-head with. 800-956-7266. I missed the caller. Will in Greenville. Will, welcome into Sports Talk. Got about 45 seconds before the break.
Hey, I'll be quick. How about Urban Myth? I can't believe that. That's crazy. But I wanted to know if we could get the reporter who broke the story to come and focus on Venables. I mean, with that anger and intensity on the sideline, surely he goes home and beats his dog or the get-back coach or somebody.
No.
I mean, yeah.
No.
He is as far as we can tell, a loving, gracious husband, and his wife loves him very much.
Really? Come on. Why you gotta take my guy Brent and drag him through the mud like that?
Again, what you mentioned is a key point, and the law puts women through things that they will, in some cases, and a lot of times, drop the charges.
Yeah, either drop the charges or just make you not want to relive that whole experience.
Exactly.
The burden of proof involving a lot of those things, again, if you look at the law, it's very bad. And I think it needs significant overhaul, but that's a story, as we say, for another day. Recruiting and Will Muschamp coming up next on Sports Talk.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. If you have more thoughts on the Urban Meyer situation at Ohio State with him being on paid administrative leave, we will take them from you at 800-956-7266. We will transition, however, though, to our tour today of the Kenneth and Cindy Long Family Football Operations Center. Had a chance to tour that. The exterior basically is complete. They have some glass they still have to install in there on the outsides of it, but most of the exterior is complete. And now they're just kind of going in, doing the wiring and some of the other fixtures before they bring all the equipment in and really set things up. They're looking to try and have it finished by the end of this year, Corn.
Yeah, it really looks good. We all had to wear the hard hats as we got to tour the facility through the first floor and the meeting rooms and through the medical area, the locker room area. The area where the players will just hang out and have some fun. It's going to be a great view on both sides. One side, you'll have a view of the practice fields. You'll have a porch that runs the length of the building, or you can go out. Each coach will have access to go right out his office to the practice fields or to the porch. Then you go to the second floor, all kind of meeting rooms, Muschamp's office, coaches' offices, one after another, right down a long hallway. It's just it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful facility. when it's all put together.
I love Muschamp's view at the stadium, too.
Yeah.
He's got a nice view.
So let's go to Muschamp. He was there to lead a group through the facility and also tell us his thoughts about having this new building being put together and what it means to the program.
How we doing?
Go ahead, doing great.
I'll go ahead.
Game changer for you?
Oh, there's no doubt. I've said it before. First of all, I'd love to thank Ken and Cindy Long for their generous donation, not just to this facility and what they've done for our university in the short time that I've been here, not just with our football program, our athletic program, but our entire university. And to South Carolina graduates, it's important for us to move forward in the right way, in their opinion, and we really appreciate them. But everybody that's donated to this facility, it's a game changer for us. It brings the wow factor when a young man and his family walk on our campus and see what we're doing. You've got to invest in order to win big. Just call it like it is. You got to spend money. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's part of it. And when people come on our campus, they see that we're investing in a student athlete.
Are you seeing that in your last two recruiting classes where that wow factor is kicking in?
I don't think there's any question. I think that they see a university that's committing to having a championship program on and off the field. We've shown our academic prowess off the field and what we've accomplished, and now we're continuing to make some progress on the field.
What kind of research did you do when you were looking to build this thing?
A lot. Now I went to several facilities and looked at it. Took a lot of input from Coach Tanner, who built Founders Park, about just some different things. Looking back and what things he might have wanted done differently and whatnot, and what was functional for us and had some nice amenities for our players. We spend a lot of time in this building. You look at training camp, we're going to be in the office. Our players will be in the building in the stadium between 5:30 in the morning. They're going to be leaving at 9 o'clock at night. They stay there all day. We don't allow them to leave. So we needed some things for them to be able to, from a team building standpoint, take advantage of, which I think that's going to be important. But there's no question it's making a difference for us.
What's your favorite thing about the facility that you didn't have before?
One-stop shop. To have a facility where all of our players have access to the coaches all of the time, to Marcus Lattimore all of the time, to not have to walk through the stadium and try and figure out where someone might be. And right now, just to be frank with you, we've got nice facilities, but the only time they come see me normally is when they're in trouble, and that's not good. We don't got many guys in trouble, but so at the end of the day, it's nice to be able to have a flowing building. And I think when I walk you guys through it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. That's a very good functional developmental facility, which I think is going to be the best in the country.
Well, when you bring a recruit here, what would be the first thing you'd show them in this building?
There's a lot of good things to show them. I can't pick out one, but I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people on different levels. Obviously, there's a lot of history of our program, which I think is important for them to see that. Obviously, moving forward in the position meeting rooms and places where they're going to be learning about us and our game and what we try and do. The weight room is going to be really important for guys that all need to be in the weight room, and the different nutrition areas we have, the recovery area we have in the weight room, the dining facility that we have up top. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a one-stop shop for our student athletes.
When you started playing football as a kid, did you ever feel like you'd be in charge of making something like this.
No, not. But it's been a lot of fun. It's been, there's been a collaborative effort of a lot of people that have put an awful lot of time into this. And, contract construction has been outstanding. Our architects have been outstanding. Everybody's worked extremely tirelessly to make this work the right way, the way we see this coming along. It's been a lot of fun to be a part of.
All right, Will Muschamp, the thing that stood out to me, the one comment they made that stood out to me was that South Carolina has made the financial commitment to be a successful football program. I think we've heard that before over the years from various coaches, because everything, of course, is relative to your era and what's big at that time. And there's no doubt South Carolina and the fan base, they are ponying up to catch up and be on top when it comes to the facilities race around the state and around the SEC.
Well, the weirdest thing is that, for a program that has the kind of interest in this state that South Carolina does, the fact that it took this long to get this kind of building for them, it's indicative, again, of the fact that everyone seems to want to have one of these, or they need to have one of these in order to be able to compete. But now that they have one, and this is something that Ray Tanner will touch on in his particular comments that we'll hear for you next hour, there's no excuse now.
Yeah, the question is, what's the next must? For these programs, what's the next must-have? You've got your indoor facility, you got your brand new practice fields, you got your ops building now, you've got your very nice apartments for the players to live in. What's the next must-have?
Well, I asked him that question today. I said, did anybody ask him about whether they're going to build a bridge where they can walk over the street from the stadium to the practice field? Because remember, one time somebody had that idea. Hey, can we build a walk bridge across?
I think that's a great idea.
They have one of those at
Why don't
Mizzou.
you donate the money?
Same deal. The next thing will have to be something. Well, again, I think the next thing that's going to come is that in stadium, using of that space on the north side there, that the space that they're vacating,
building.
the space that they're vacating, and turn that into some sort of fan operation.
I think they turn it in. That should become the home of their museum. Make it to their Hall of Fame and Sports Museum. That's a natural place for
one of the things that gets me is when we have to study the fact that as human beings, we haven't changed that much, but with our toys, the equipment makes us think a little bit differently. And so when they have all the touch screens and stuff for people to see, like I think they have one feature where you can touch an NFL helmet and see how many Gamecocks play with the guy. And it only dawned on me when I was with a buddy's son one time, and he had his 3-year-old with him, and he walked toward just a blank screen. And the first thing the 3-year-old does is takes his finger and drag it across the screen because he's trying to drag a bit. I say, now we got to think differently because these youngsters figure out this equipment so quickly. It's incredible.
Let me get what I can in on recruiting. Cornerback Johnny Dixon visited Florida and Miami last weekend, said he thinks he'll commit within a couple of weeks. He's down to USC, Miami, Florida, and Penn State. Took an official to USC in June. Clemson offered 2020 defensive end Riley Mills, 6'5", 265, Lake Forest, Illinois. Tigers also today offered 2020 athlete Tank Bigsby of Hoganville, Georgia. Clemson also has an offer out to defensive lineman Jacob Bandy, 6'3", 295, Antioch, California. He will take an official to Clemson in December. He and defensive line coach Todd Bates have been in contact on a regular basis. He has already taken an official visit to Colorado, and he's got ones scheduled with Illinois, September 7th, Oregon, October 12th, and Washington, December 14th. So those would be his 5. Last season, 50 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 10 quarterback hurries. And point guard Tyrell Jones of Orlando, who has a Clemson offer, was offered by Florida. And USC has offered 6'6" Donta Scott of Philadelphia, according to PrepHoops.com, and he's already taken an unofficial visit for a football game.
Hour 2 coming up. We'll hear from Ray Tanner. We're going to hear also from more of you about the stuff involving Urban Meyer. Camp reporting tomorrow for Clemson USC. We'll take a look at that. And today is also an SC Wild Day, so we'll hear from Captain Billy Downer as well to close out our second hour. More to come. Sports Talk next.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show. 800-956-7266.
Back we are, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes with you. We'll have time for more of your calls at 800-956-7266. Lines are open right now. You can jump right in. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. And, boy, it's been a busy show talking about Urban Meyer, talking about urban development over at USC with the new building coming up.
Nicely done. I like that.
Right off the top, baby. Beautiful new ops building under construction over at USC. Gamecock fans should feel proud about it. When it's all said and done, it's going to be sitting right next to the indoor practice facility, right next to the practice fields, that whole area taking off. And I can imagine there'll be other development of some sort back that way as the university continues to grow. I do like Pro's idea of a pedestrian bridge connecting. It'd probably be a little costly, but why not? You can get the money together, get your athletes, get all your NFL guys to throw the money in there and call it the
Davion Clowney Memorial Bridge,
something like that. Yeah, a bridge to somewhere. How about that? A bridge to somewhere, a bridge to victory.
A bridge to championship.
How about a bridge to championship? You know what? I think we've hit on something. A bridge to championship.
Let's bridge, shall we, to South Carolina's athletic director, Ray Tanner. He spoke along with Will Muschamp in interviews you can find online at sportstalksc.com. I'll give you a sampling of what he had to say. And I think it's important to make this distinction, too, because people are going to compare it to Clemson's building. And I'm not saying that one is better or worse. I'm just saying they're different. But I think they both personify what each program is about and what each program means. And the one thing that Ray Tanner said in his comments was that this building is going to be, at least at its first intention, a workplace.
Delighted to have you guys out here today to visit our facility. I think this is a wonderful opportunity. You may have other chances to be inside the building later on, but as you know, in a few months, it's going to be fast and furious. But it's a transformational project. The timing sometimes in life is great, and it was when Coach Muschamp got here. And I said to him early on, I said, you have an opportunity to get your fingerprints on this building if you should choose to do that. And he said, I would love to be involved. And he has been intimately involved with the construction of this project and getting it just like he wanted it. And it's wonderful for us. And, you know, I think sometimes in college athletics, we get caught up in a world of we're just trying to keep up with the Joneses. It's really not the case here. We have a football project that we needed in a big way. Williams-Brice is great. The coach's office is at one end, weight room's at the other end, training room's on the side. It just didn't flow well. It wasn't efficient and effective. And this building, well, with the indoor, Stephen Jerry Spurrier indoor, and now the Ken and Cindy Long operations building, our practice fields here. This is going to be one of the finer facilities in all of college football. So we're excited about what we have going on here, and we look forward to a number of ribbon cuttings and getting this building in full force. I hope that it slows down toward the end of the year, which means we'll still be playing. We won't have time to do all the things we need to do. So let's hope that we're full throttle in January, and we may get in before that. But we appreciate y'all being here and give you an opportunity to go inside the building and check it out.
Ray, what feature do you like most about it?
I just like the fact that, it's football efficient. It's friendly. We have a few bells and whistles, but as Coach Muschamp said early on, this is a place of work, and certainly going to be attractive recruits. That's part of it. You have to have a facility that shows that you're committed to the game, and the recruits and their families are going to be able to see that.
What part do you feel is the most innovative?
Well, innovative, I guess. You always go back to the weight room. How big and bold is your weight room? Right, Corey, you like that? We got the cardio deck, and I keep trying to squeeze an office in there for me, and I might have to drop in here from time to time. I'm not sure I'm going to be successful there, but I just think that it's just the layout of the building is functional. The players will be at one end. We'll have some opportunities, and it was well thought out with Kevin O'Connell and Derek and the architects, the engineers, and again, Coach Muschamp's input into this building. He's a football coach. Nobody knows what needs to be in a facility more than the coach that's involved. So he's got his fingerprints all over this. So it's going to be an outstanding facility and an asset for our football program.
When you think about what happens across college football, even here in the state with the football facilities that are being built, how important was it for you to get a facility of this nature?
Well, I think it was extremely important. And again, sometimes, I've been in college athletics for a long time, and it bothers me sometimes when you think you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, but we really needed a facility. We needed a football facility for efficiency and effectiveness. And, this satisfies what we need. It's across the street from the stadium. We can go in the stadium. Everything we need here, one-stop shop. So I think it's great. It fits for what we need, for our student athletes coming forward.
How badly did you need this be competitive in the SEC especially?
Well, sometimes you never know the impact it's going to make, but it's going to be positive. You take out negativity in recruiting, whatever the aspect may be, you eliminate it. And if we did have some negative aspects in recruiting with our facilities, we have eliminated those. It all comes back to people, but it does take out, the resource negativity that's involved. And, this is going to be one of the best in the country.
Ray Tanner, who spoke earlier today. And again, I think they've already seen the first fruits of it. I think you can attribute some of why Ryan Helinski's coming here, why Luke Doty's coming here, and a lot of those types of recruits. You're getting inside a lot of people's minds now with this building.
You got to be able to sell a vision. When Dabo Swinney took over at Clemson and they were going down in flames after Tommy Bowden, and things looked like they were maybe spinning out of control. When he went recruiting, he sold a vision, his vision. He was recruiting before, but it was Tommy Bowden's vision. Now he sold his vision. Will Muschamp is doing the same thing at South Carolina. He's selling his vision of the future of the program, and there's no better way to show that vision than through brick and mortar, and to show them what they've done at the stadium, to show them what they've done over at the practice area, what they're doing now. That's very convincing to people. Parents like to see it. Plus, USC has done a fantastic job on the academic side in being among the best in the SEC and graduating their players. They got a ton to sell. They got wins to sell now. They got a bowl win to sell from last year. So I think this train is definitely on the right track, picking up steam. Do they have enough talent to take that next step? You got to get over that hurdle and to get into that elite group where only a few teams live. Can they get there?
I still go back to what I said before about the mental aspect of the game, because there are times when I looked at their championship games and Alabama did not look like the best team on the field. But mentally, it is so ingrained that we're champions that they don't quit. Some teams, they get right to the precipice and they look talented enough to win a championship, but for some reason in the chest and in the brain, they can't grab it for whatever reason. But Corn, I go back to what I said before. When you're an urban campus, land is at a premium. And I think the athletic department, you could see eyes gleaming when they bought the farmer's market.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do something with this thing. And it's just a matter of having the money and then putting it, into fruition. And that was happening with the practice facility.
I think the state had to help them out too, right?
Exactly.
And that farmer's market deal, they had to go find a new place for the farmer's market, make a deal for that. It all came together for them.
They had to find two places, remember, because they were moving the farmer's market over there, I think, but beyond Shop Road.
Yep.
And then decided, wait a minute, no. And then they went down 321.
Well, they've got a nice setup there now. There's no question about it. You ride around the stadium, you walk around the stadium, you just see tremendous improvement, a lot more signage, a lot more sticking the chest out at South Carolina, which is something that they've been short of for many, many decades. Self-promotion. They're catching up with everybody in the social media area, in the we're here to be seen, we're here to be noticed area. You got to do that in today's college football world, as much as a pain that it is to see it all the time on Twitter. It's there, and that's how teams feel like they have to recruit.
Camp Players report tomorrow for Clemson and South Carolina. Our observations in advance of the first practices coming up next.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We could bandy about a lot over the next couple minutes before we get to our friends at SC Wild, Captain Billy Downer and his special guest that he's brought in with us. Camp tomorrow, Clemson, South Carolina. They both report. The actual first practices get underway on Friday for both. We'll hear from Will Muschamp again tomorrow, and also some selected players from Carolina. We'll hear from Dabo and the Tiger players for the first time on Friday. Dabo before practice, and then the players and a coordinator afterwards. I guess probably the one thing you want to see, and again, we don't get to see much, but what in your mind do you want to see from each going in?
You mean in terms of on the practice or on the practice field, or what do we want to hear from the coaches?
I don't know if we're going to hear anything from the coaches.
Yeah.
I'm talking.
Well, look, first of all, at Clemson, you're not going to get to see a whole lot, and same as South Carolina. I mean, both practices will be closed. South Carolina, you'll get to see, 3 periods, I think, some stretching and all that kind of stuff.
Clemson has a similar
situation. You'll be keeping an eye on who's in yellow, who's in a cast, whose arm is in a sling, things of that nature, who didn't show up, et cetera, et cetera. That's one thing you look for. But then when you get to the actual practice itself, the little bit that you get a chance to watch, you want to, of course, look at the speed of the practice, how quickly are they moving in and out of their drills, how coordinated is everybody, who's playing where, what other position moves might have been made in the last 24, 48 hours. And, of course, at Clemson, boy, everybody's going to be watching quarterback. You know, how sharp is Kelly Bryant? How sharp is Trevor Lawrence? You know, he overthrew him there. Boy, he put that one right on the money. They're going to be breaking down every snap, every pass between those two guys. You know, USC is going to be, how does Jake Bentley look? Is he more athletic? Is he quicker? He has slimmed down. How's the arm? And I also think at South Carolina, you're going to want to watch, when you get a chance, just how well Brian McClendon is handling the offense, how fast the offense is moving, but not just fast. You know, going fast all the time is not the answer to being a fast offense. I heard Chad Morris say at SEC Media Days, and I mean, he's an expert on it. It doesn't mean going fast on every snap. You just want to control the tempo, sometimes under center, sometimes in the shotgun. Sometimes you're getting up to the line of scrimmage and going quickly, and sometimes you're pausing and looking to the sideline to get some more information. So going fast doesn't mean going full speed all the time to get a snap off.
But I think Muschamp put it best. I think it was Muschamp that said it.
Yes.
You're not going to move the offense fast if you're not getting first downs while we got the football, because you can move fast and be 3 and out, and that's it. You got to get some first downs. I think the key to me, if I'm watching Clemson, I just want to see Dabo and how he addresses the team prior to this practice. Because if you're Clemson and you've been to these playoffs every year, suddenly some of your younger players especially, when did we get to the state? When did we get to the state? Wait a minute. There's a 12-game schedule you have to go through. And we're playing to a standard. And we're not going to lollygag around and be lazy and say, okay, well, yeah, I'll really turn it on as we get closer to the championship. No, I want championship ball first day. And I want it. And he's going to have to push that. He's going to push that.
On the quarterback thing, I almost think that Dabo Swinney's made up his mind and he's waiting for someone to change it. Now, whether it's he's made up his mind that he's going to start Kelly Bryant or whether he's going to start Trevor Lawrence, one way or the other, doesn't matter to me. But I think he's kind of made up his mind, and I think he's waiting on what happens in order to change his mind, or at least he has a plan in place, I think. Because I think you can't go in on August 1st or August 3rd, whenever they start practice. I don't think you can go in without having at least a general idea of what you want to do a month from now, in my mind. I don't think you're just going to, on August the 20th, decide, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put in these plans right now. I think he has an idea of what he wants to do. I don't know how you feel.
I agree. I think at this point you have to have an idea about what you're going to do until something changes your mind. So I think when they begin practice on Friday night at 5:30, and those quarterbacks start throwing passes and running their schemes against air to begin with, but after a few days they'll be doing it against real competition in pads and all that. I think I'm like you. Who knows who sits first in his mind? I mean, the allegiance to the senior is one thing. The promise to the freshman is another thing. And the freshman has supposedly all the talent in the world beyond what the senior has. And if he shows it and it's clearly on display and he's got the leadership ability as well, I don't think they'll hesitate to make the move. I want to go back to what you said, though. And that is, Clemson last year at times seemed to be in
automatic pilot.
I was going to say fourth gear. out of a 5-gear transmission. I mean, yeah, automatic pilot's a good word. I mean, they were so talented. They were so much better than most of their opponents that they could sort of cruise and get their W's and not be threatened and move on. And then, you know, you could tell in the substitution pattern and the workload they put on some guys. I mean, they didn't work Wayne Gallman, not Wayne Gallman, I'm sorry. They didn't work
Travis Etienne.
Yeah, well, any of those running backs, because he was brand new. But I mean, they tried to distribute the workload and keep guys fresh for that stretch in November when they knew that the games were big and what was going to come up in December and January. And I think that they'll probably, you know, do the same thing this year. Because of the depth, they're able to do that because they have quality depth at many of their positions. Now, you know, Texas A&M is going to be the early, you know, big test that the entire country is going to be looking at because they're on the road. It's Jimbo Fisher, the history between the coaches, between Fisher and Clemson, and it's Texas A&M, an SEC big dog at their stadium. That's going to be a whale of a football game, and I don't think that's one that they'll try and cruise through. But then you'll have your little stretch of Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Wake Forest, maybe even NC State.
Don't sleep on NC State. They
I know
always
you
play them
like
close.
NC State. I know you like NC State. You like Boston College.
I don't like NC State. I like that NC State always seems to find a way to keep it close with Clemson, and they've played with fire each of the last 2 years when they played them.
But then you get a pretty tough closing stretch if these teams live up to billing. I mean, at Florida State, listen, I think Louisville could be, I think pass.
You believe in the Puma?
I do. This guy was a very talented player coming out of high school. And you know what happens sometimes when you lose that one guy who's the centerpiece, even though he was a great player, everybody comes together better as a team and plays better.
Louisville going to be able to defend this year because they didn't last year.
We'll see. But then they go up to Boston College. Okay. And I think in the snow and the ice and the heavy winds coming off the bay in Boston.
You know, I love
a bunch
Boston
of
College.
Southern country boys going up there to play in that. I don't know. November 10th in Boston. What's the weather typically?
Very cold.
Yeah. We might switch out and let you take that trip.
Oh, now because you want to go to the swamp. That's why because the swamp is that week for South Carolina.
I prefer 70 degrees and humid over.
You're the one who always wants to go on the Boston College trip. I got friends in Boston. I wouldn't mind going to Boston.
Isn't the Celtics having a pregame?
Preseason practice. It's entirely possible.
That's probably. And then that's why you want to go.
You got Duke, who's got a very good quarterback, and then you got the Gamecocks.
Well, the Duke thing is interesting because it's an opponent that Clemson doesn't see every year, and it's an opponent that you don't see often. Now, of course, Dabo has a Duke dossier, but the players don't. They don't see Duke because it's a rotating cross-divisional rival. So in that regard, you can't necessarily look at that game and say you absolutely know what's going to happen, especially in Clemson's side. I mean, you'll have plenty of film on them to date during that year because it's the penultimate week of the season. But that's usually the week where Clemson has a cupcake game, pardon the expression, but usually they have one of their FCS or something else in that week. But they do not have a walkover opponent before they take on the rivalry game with South Carolina.
I don't think you look at Clemson's schedule. I mean, they don't have, to me, what I would consider a true cupcake. Yes, Furman's an FCS team, but, you know, Furman will go in there and play them hard and give them quite a fight. Georgia Southern in week 3, you know, they're a recent step up to FBS football, and they are not the Georgia Southern that used to dominate on the FCS level. But, I mean, they are an FBS team now from an FBS league, though they don't match up with Clemson. But, you know, I don't see
trying to pump up Georgia Southern. They're going to win that game. Well,
of course they're going to win.
They'll have a running clock in the fourth quarter.
Well, you're probably right. You're probably right. But I mean, at least on paper, I don't see them as being absolute violets.
We will talk more tomorrow.
Shrinking violets at that.
On South Carolina Clemson. SC Wild is next.
Check one. Just say something, Michael.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Check.
You got
Check.
You're probably going to have to turn him up a little bit. Yeah.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Indeed, indeed. It is a wild night here on Sports Talk. Time for SC Wild from DNR, starring the one and only Captain Billy Downer. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Also co-starring tonight.
Co-starring
biologist Michael Hook, our small game project leader with DNR. Michael's here to help us talk about doves.
With a name like Hook, you've got to be involved with DNR.
Absolutely. It was born into me.
Well, it's great to have you. You were telling us you're a Clemson grad. You're a USC grad.
That's correct.
You're married to a USC woman.
That's correct.
So you got a lot of influences there.
House divided.
For sure.
Yeah. It's great to have you. Good to have you
for
with
having
us.
me.
Doves and dove hunting on the agenda tonight, Captain.
Yes, two things that you probably know little about. We're going to try to learn more about tonight.
That's why we have you here.
That's right.
Educate.
This time of year, people really probably aren't quite thinking about doves necessarily just yet. Our dove season will begin September 1st. As we approach the next couple of weeks, folks be getting ready for the opening day dove shoots. But brought Michael in today to talk about some of the things that go on in the summertime that a lot of sportsmen in the state probably are not aware of. We have a very active banding program where we're actually putting metal bands on doves this time of year for a variety of biological information that we get from that. Michael's going to tell us a little bit about, Michael, we talk about bands, how many years we've been banding?
We started banding in 2003. So this is our, 15th year.
Okay.
So been at it strong for a while.
So banding information, what does banding do for us? A lot of people might say, why are you putting a band on a dove's leg?
Well, like you said, it gives us a lot of information. We can age the birds, we can sex the birds. We can come up with a population for not just the state, but nationally as well. Because this is a national effort. It's not just South Carolina that's participating in this. So, we get our hands on a lot of birds and we can see what's going on with the wildlife in the state.
Why is it important that we know the population of the doves in our state?
Well, Billy touched on it. Come 1st of September, you think of two things. You think of football and dove hunting, and they go hand in hand. That first weekend of September, I mean, you go have a barbecue, shoot some doves, and watch football, and that it's a big sport in South Carolina. So, it's pretty important to the sportsmen. So we have to keep an eye on the population.
Yep. So understanding our population, what the trends are, if we're going up, down, so we can make adjustments. Of course, those are made nationally most of the time.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep. That is correct.
And that decision is made now in April, I think.
It is.
March, April.
It is. It's a long process. It takes about 3 or 4 months. But
so for trends from last year, information from last year becomes important to making decisions for this year.
So what's the best information you've gotten from this process over the last couple of years?
Going on going in early, we always thought of our birds as migratory. We get a lot of birds from the upstate or from other states above us, but it turns out a lot of our birds are local, especially in the early season. So that was one thing that surprised us, sort of caught us off guard.
So how many birds we band in a year?
Usually around 1,700, 1,800. We've banded as high as 2,000.
I can't imagine the process of getting a band on a dove.
It's actually pretty neat.
Can you describe how you do it?
The trap looks a lot like a fish trap. Those are familiar with the fish trap. It's a welded wire, like made into basically a box. Has no bottom, and there's two funnels that go into the box from the outside, and you put bait, seed, sunflowers, bird seed, wheat. Sunflowers probably work best. Is what I've seen that works best. Sunflowers, and you get birds to come into an area to feed, and then you put the traps out next to it, getting used to that. Then you put the trap on top of the feed. The birds literally walk in the trap.
Yep.
And they're like a fish trap. The hole's there, but they just can't figure the way to get back out of it.
So how do you get the band on the leg?
It's sedum.
No. You
grab
reach
the
in.
bird. Yep.
Yeah, reach in, grab them, and you can flip them over, and you got a special pair of pliers that you apply the band and turn them over and let them go.
Is that right?
And while you're holding them, you're going to look at what they, if they're male, female, and then there's a couple of things you look at on the feathers to determine
The
what
age.
their molt,
Yep.
where they are in the molt. Because birds are always losing their feathers. As they're growing new feathers to continue to keep them fresh so they can fly. Doves particularly have a really unique defense mechanism, and their tail feathers will come out without warning.
And do
They shake their tail feathers, as I hear.
Well, pretty much, yeah. If a bobcat or something goes after, or another animal goes after a dove, one of their defense mechanisms to get away is that tail feather will just come off, and they'll fly off. And you'll have a big, whatever the animal is, a mouthful of feathers and nothing.
Does that grow back, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A couple of questions come up we thought about that would be interesting for that is, you talked about ages, mortality rates. How far have we gotten birds banded from South Carolina? You mentioned a couple of states that actually birds left here and went, as far as Illinois, Indiana?
Sure. Indiana's probably the farthest. We've got a bunch that go to Georgia. We've got a couple that
Sorry
go
to
to
hear that.
Yeah, we've got a couple that go to North Carolina, not many. But yeah,
Florida.
Also,
none went to Florida.
Well, maybe one or two.
Okay.
One to Alabama, Delaware, but most of them
kind of sounds like recruiting, doesn't it, Corn?
Yeah.
It really does. It really does.
Reach out all over the country. So these birds, I mean, they have the strength and the stamina,
absolutely,
to flap those wings and go thousands of miles.
Sure. In the late season, we've killed some that were banded in Ontario, Canada, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. I mean, we get them from all over. I think we've got one from Montana even. That's a pretty good
cross-country flight.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in a South Carolina dove versus a dove from another state, maybe from what they've been eating or anything like that?
All morning doves, colors pretty much the same. Your migratory birds always appear to be a little bigger. Again, just the sense of gaining energy, weight, muscle mass to be able to make that flight.
A little bit older.
Right? One of the things I think is really neat is people talk about all the time as dove hunters amongst themselves is, well, it doesn't matter what we do. 80% of the doves are going to die anyway. What is the real mortality rate on doves naturally year to year? You would tell me a couple of things.
Yeah, the juveniles, they're good at dying. They got a 75% rate of mortality.
They're not survivors.
No.
I mean, like at what age?
The juveniles are a year less.
Warning, make a year.
So 75% will live a year or less. So
is that what juveniles? Of the juvenile?
Yeah,
I'm surprised you can kill a juvenile like that.
In other words, hatched birds they're weaker a little bit. They just
absolutely.
Heavy rains, different things can affect
everybody loves a dove. Us included.
Animals. Yeah. No.
And if you think about a dove, they're sort of a weak species. They're not real strong.
And when they feed, they're on the ground. They're susceptible to attack by other predators, hawks,
you name it, though.
And I've seen hawks attack birds. Same thing does with that defense mechanism. Feathers, poof, and they're able to get away. But on adults, what's the mortality?
It's a little bit better, 60%. So a few more make it, but yeah, a year and a half old dove is an old dove.
So going off that,
but the good
how
news
big's-
is they're good at reproducing.
Exactly.
There's no shortage.
So
That's
how
right.
big's our South Carolina population?
We just got finished with a survey early July, and it looks like we've got about $13 million in the state.
13 million?
Right. And
We
think
do.
about that
With
now.
an M.
70% of those will die. And then the 30% that survive will get right back up to 13 million. I mean, it's just amazing to think about. We had, you said it's
Happens
like
every year.
4 million birds right now.
Yeah.
But with reproduction, every bird you said will raise how many? Every adult for
They
every adult?
usually raise 2, and good reproduction year will average 3 juveniles per 1 adult.
Pretty amazing. I did not realize you had that kind of
They
number.
rebound so fast.
Yeah.
It's like, up, down. It's just very.
Is there any limit in hunting about how many you can
Yes,
take?
there is a limit. We'll talk about that a little bit
Okay.
later, but you have 15 birds is the limit. And that limit has changed. It used to be 12. Now it's 15, a little more liberal.
Per day.
Per
so
day.
again,
Per hunter.
right.
Per hunter. So per day per hunter.
Mhm.
So like if you want to hunt for 3 or 4 days, you can take 50, you can take 60.
Yeah,
So like
if
4 days.
if
Yeah.
you- and
15,
I'll
40.
tell you, the average hunter, that's what they hunt is 4 days
Mhm.
and during the season. It's
We're going to come back after the break with that, and that'll be some really neat information how little success people actually have.
Getting the doves?
Yes.
All right, hang on. We'll come back. More SC Wild in a moment.
It's time to get wild with SC Wild. Everything hunting and fishing from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources and your host, Phil Kornblut. SC Wild on Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back to SC Wild here tonight with our guest, Michael Hook.
So you have come a long way as a broadcaster.
And the Corn.
Come a long way
Will
as a
Pelagic.
broadcaster.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, they couldn't even pronounce Will's name at the South Carolina
Pelagic.
tour.
What's hard with that?
I know. I had to explain.
I can't spell it, but I can say it.
He didn't even get an attempt.
No, he
was.
Steve Flint looked at it and goes, Will, you go over here.
Will, you
Will.
go over here.
I was rather insulted by it.
Well, back to doves.
You're talking about doves.
We were talking about the dove mortality, what it really is. Our population being around 13 million, which surprised you and which surprised a lot of people.
me, yeah.
And then how that drops maybe even to 4 million during, after the winter, and then rebounds because of success of hatchlings. So how many, you had a study on how many days people hunt and kind of what the average success rate is. Where did it come out?
Yeah, it's not as good as a lot of us would hope. A lot of us fancy ourselves as hunters, but the results show that
we're all hunters. We're just not really
successful.
Good at it.
Yeah. Most dove hunters average about 5 days a year out of a 90-day season. And
that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well,
it's going to bring a point up here.
All right. And they average 5 birds per day or per hunter.
So 25 birds to them is enough.
I mean,
get them through a cold winter.
Here's the deal. Remember we talked about the season starts September 1st. All right. We have always reminded, we talk about the first 3 days of the year. We only allow you to shoot in the afternoons only after 12 o'clock. And the question's always been why? Well, because 80% of the doves that are taken for the entire season have historically been taken the first 3 days. So those first 3 days are going to the average 5 days. 3 of them are those first 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
wipe everybody out the first 3 days.
A lot of hunting pressure the first 3 days of the season. Again, hunting, though, attributes how much percentage dove mortality? Didn't you say it was about 10, 15%?
Yeah. We kill about 1 million doves a year.
And that sounds bad, but it's not.
Out of 13 million.
Especially compared to how they die elsewhere.
What you're telling me is if I want to come back as something in nature, come back as a dove, your chance of not getting shot is pretty good.
Yeah, but you may get eaten.
But you may get eaten by others.
Or just die of natural
your chance
causes.
Of living is not very good. Yeah, that's the problem.
So let's talk about food for somebody.
Yeah,
that's true.
And the doves are foods for lots.
Yes,
humans are food for sharks. I believe,
or the soil, depending on what happens.
You and your fear of sharks, leave the shark alone.
We
just talked about we have had
nightmares
no
about those things.
1852, and you're worried about a shark still.
I find that hard to believe.
No deaths.
That's the truth.
Is that just in the state of South Carolina?
We gave that information out.
Are you talking about
week
immediate death, like eaten right
special.
then and there? Or are you talking about after being bitten and losing your arm and leg that you bleed to death?
Attributed to a shark. The last one was 1852.
I must confess, Billy, I was not listening last week. I was actually stuffing my face with seafood.
And you were sitting here next to us.
No,
you weren't.
On vacation.
Okay, that's right. You weren't. Yeah. My bad.
Pardon.
I'll give you the pardon on that.
Dispensation, please.
Yes,
all right, let's get back to the hunting.
All right, dove season. So dove season starts September the 1st coming up. That's going to be a Saturday. Sometimes the season doesn't come into Labor Day, the Monday this year. It does come in on Saturday, but Saturday the 1st, the 2nd of Sunday, and 3rd, Monday, Labor Day, those 3 days, afternoons only. The limit, of course, is 15 birds per day per hunter. You can't shoot more than that. In the afternoons only prevents people from trying to go out in the morning and then the afternoons. What the purpose of that is to kind of help protect the doves because we know so many people come out those first 3 days. So what are you required to have to hunt doves? Your state hunting license. Doesn't have to be a big game permit. State hunting license works. As well as a free HIP, your Harvest Information Program permit. You get that when you buy your license. That's when you answer the questions about how many birds did you shoot last year, doves, ducks, and other geese and other things. Those questions are there as part of a national survey to help determine populations as well as part of the formula. So if you ever wonder why you ask those questions, that's why. It's free in our state. We don't charge for it. Again, if you go hunting, though, your gun must be properly plugged. We talked about that. You take a shotgun, must be incapable of holding more than 3 shells at one time. And so A lot of people use over and unders, single barrels, pumps, automatics, but it can't hold more than 3 shells at one time. Shooting times are 1/2 for the rest of the season outside of 3 days, or 1/2 hour before sunrise until sunset.
So why the limit on the shells? Just to make it more sporting?
Yes, it would prevent people from shooting.
Just bam, 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 bam.
Exactly. If you shoot more than 3 times, you're liable to be either taking too many, or get too excited, or you're going to injure something if you took your time.
Plus the kick on that shotgun is not exactly. It's generous. I would
Very
say.
true. So first season goes from September.
A real
1st,
man can handle that, though.
Unlike
I just said a real man can handle it.
Do we want to go back to the tennis court incident?
Do we want to take out a little shotgun?
There's no
shell
video
competition?
evidence.
We're going to
There's
do
no
this.
video
We're going to do this
evidence
the
of that.
same day we do the food. We're going to have to do that.
We have to.
It's coming up.
You know what? Bring your shotgun up here. We'll open up the windows and we'll take some shots on Main
We're
Street.
going to do a live. We're going to
We
do
won't
a
hit
live.
anybody. There's nobody on Main Street.
We're going to do a live take offsite at the Watery Range coming up.
I want to
folks.
go
That's gonna
shoot.
come
Yeah,
up.
we're going to go shoot.
We're going to do that. We're
one
going to
day.
have to record it though.
Of course,
We've got to
we'll
record the
put the
moment.
periscope. We'll do the whole thing.
Hey, that's a good idea. We can
The
do
whole
that.
thing.
So first season, September 1st to October 13th. Second season, November 10th to the 24th. That's the Thanksgiving season traditionally called. And then the remaining part of the season, December 15th through January 15th of 2019. So that's when you typically see the migratory birds we call that come in from out of state. So, Michael, we talk about dove hunting opportunity in the state. How many public dove fields do we have?
It varies year to year, but this year we've got about 42. We've got 7 youth-only fields
In
as
addition
well.
to that,
That's
right?
correct.
Right.
That's correct.
So 49 possible areas to go. Looking at last year, we did the little top 5 list.
That's right.
The top 5 dove fields for opening day. Number 5.
It's kind of exciting. It's like opening day at Wrigley Field, opening day
Number
at Hampton
5.
Stadium, opening
in
day at
Lawrence County PD Station.
That's right.
Coming in number 4 from Chesterfield County, the Wilkes Chapel Dove Field in Sand Hill State Forest. Coming in number 3 in Cherokee County, the Gaffney Board of Public Works Field. That's a mouthful, but
you know,
that
Gaffney
highlights the partnerships.
Well, that's right. That's right. You know, and we got to thank a lot of folks because it's tough to come up with a dove field, and a lot of folks have stepped up, like the Forestry Commission and Cherokee Public Works.
I'm surprised Gaffney's 3. I mean, everybody in Gaffney's got a gun.
Hey, look, number 2.
And they use it at football games after their coach loses. They run them out of town. That's
Look,
lose a
What is
game at
going
Gaffney.
on with you
Let's
today?
stay focused on dove season,
I'm
please.
sorry.
I mean, really. The violence part of this is not good. Okay, back to Clarendon County. Clarendon County, number 2, the Santee Dam Field. You said last year came close to taking number 1.
Absolutely.
Now that's 110 acre field, if I remember right.
I believe you're right.
It's a pretty nice sized field. At the end of the dam there, into 260 in Clarendon County there at right next to Randolph's Landing where you enter there. Number 1 for several years now, holding the top spot in Berkeley County, the Canal Dove Field.
That's correct.
Famous for being the top field. Hundreds of people show up to that field.
Yeah, they had an off year last year. They only killed 1,625 on opening day, and that's down from the 2,300 they had killed the year
How many
before.
hunters will go out there on opening day, would you say?
Last year they had 443 hunters.
So a lot of hunters.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So again, remember, public opportunities are out there on our dove field. So if you don't have somewhere to go for opening day, check out a DNR dove field. For more information on our dove fields and locations, go to the DNR website at dnr.sc.gov. Remember, after October 1st, you can begin topsoiling wheat through November the 30th. We'll talk more about that in the weeks to come.
It sounds great. Michael, thanks for coming out.
Well, thank you for having me.
Loved having you. Great subject. Doves. And looking forward to having some dove here, right? You're going to bring some stuff and cook?
We're going to do
I'm
that
ready.
on our shotgun day.
Yeah.
We'll put all that together for a great show.
Thank you, Captain.
I'm curious.
Keep up the Citadel faith.
I can't wait to see that gun just displace your shoulder.
I can handle it, man. Bring in the biggest thing you got. Bring in a howitzer and put it right here. Put it next to my gun. We'll take care of
Promises,
it.
promises, promises.
We'll see you tomorrow night.